ちゃん、死んだ人には興味ないんだね。
違
う。自分一人で生きてるんだね。
そうじゃないんだ。マリー、このまま行かないでくれ。
They say the world of the living and the dead are separated by a thin veil. What happens when that veil is ripped away and our worlds collide? Ghostwire Tokyo is one answer to that question. It's a game that is rich in lore, where you can get lost exploring the eerie streets of a haunted Tokyo and enjoy a fun combat experience. I played this game and completed the campaign on regular difficulty to have what I thought would be a balanced experience between challenge and entertainment. In hindsight, I could have gone for a higher difficulty, but we'll circle back to that later on. If you're looking for a full review of the game, I would recommend videos from channels like ACG, G-Man Lives, SkillUp, and The Sphere Hunter for some really great in-depth reviews that break down the minutiae of the game. This is more of a light review, actually just a download of my experience onto paper and video. I'm here primarily to tell you about my thoughts on the game, what I really enjoyed about the game, what I kind of enjoyed about it, and what I didn't. So let's start out with what Ghostwire Tokyo really left an impression on me with. The world of Ghostwire Tokyo is filthy rich in lore. It is a lore treasure trove, a lornacopia, if you will. Heh. Anyway, you will find so much detail in the world, from notes left behind from the yokai investigation team, KK's dossiers, cursed objects that are referenced to urban legends and pop culture, and so much more. Ghostwire Tokyo features many well-known figures from Japanese folklore such as Kappa or river monsters.
Hey, Kappa! Kappa? Cappuccino? That makes me hyper. What's a kappa?
Itan Momen, which are a type of possessed cloth, Nekomata, which are the sentient cat spirits that you find in all the shops, and Hanya, which is the featured main antagonist of the game. Now, let's focus on the Hanya character as an example of just how deep this lore dives into. The word Hanya is derived from the Japanese translation for the Sanskrit word for wisdom. Phew, what a mouthful there. There are supposedly 3 grades of Hanya: Namanari, Chuniri, and Honnari. And as the story progresses, we see the main antagonist actually evolve into each stage of this, from the initial encounter and leading up to the final battle. That's a pretty insane level of detail and cultural infusion into a video game, and that's just one example that stood out to me. In some ways, to me, this game feels like a love letter or a tribute to the rich catalog of Japanese folklore and how it still plays a major role in Japanese entertainment and media today. Continuing on the world of Ghostwire Tokyo, the actual terrain that you traverse is incredibly detailed and realistic. I spent 4 days traveling in Tokyo with my wife, who was my fiance at the time. Seeing the neon-lit cityscapes, Shibuya Crossing, and walking through the Sengoku neighborhood was incredibly reminiscent for me, and it was also a wonderful display, a dedication to Japan that these developers had put into creating in this game. For example, the ubiquitous Shiba Inu can be found all over the city in the game. I mean, they are everywhere, and kind of like the popular meme videos you've seen of Shibas, they're super helpful, really cute, and in the game, they will dig up some currency in exchange for a couple of Cheetos. Now, if only we could get a real Shiba to do that for us. Please? Let's talk about the story for a bit. from a narrative standpoint, I think the main story is decent. Akito is the generic main character. He's pretty much a blank canvas, so it's easier for the player to put themselves in his shoes. That's exactly what he's designed to do, I think. His parents are dead, of course, and the story is told through flashbacks with the character experiencing some series of regrets. You know, pretty typical cliched anime memes and stories here. I'm not knocking the delivery of it, as the theme of regret is pretty integral to the overall theme of the story and the game in regards to the idea of spirits and hauntings, because these spirits have regrets and that's why they linger on in this world. I won't spoil everything for you, but I think that the story could have been more interesting had it been told from the perspective of KK and his crusade to take down the main antagonist of the game. He's already has a wealth of knowledge and experience in dealing with the yokai and the main antagonist group. Akito is just there to be a generic blank hero for you to interface with and kind of take agency in the game. His overall backstory is pretty weak, with the main exception being the theme of regret again. I think also that the main antagonist is a bit hard to connect with. There's no real backstory to them or him. I mean, they hint at it, but it's never really fleshed out, really. He rides on being some kind of all-powerful entity who throws his pawns at you, and the whole "I know more than you, just stay out of my way" thing gets pretty old, and so does the whole battle through the different tiers of enemies thing too. It's I understand it's the way that the game is structured in order to kind of develop the campaign overall, but my point still stands. If you've watched any decent amount of anime or just media in general, you'll see where the story is going fairly early on. With that being said, it's still entertaining enough that you will want to see it through to the end. Moving on to gameplay, I thought it was pretty fun. The combat is engaging. I would describe the combat as broad, with some depth to it. You can approach enemies with a variety of tactics. Using stealth to get the drop on them from behind can help whittle down their numbers. You can use high elevation vantage points to survey each battlefield and develop a strategy for taking down large groups of enemies. You don't always have to just charge in there. Or you can, I suppose. Forget the maneuvers, just head straight for them. There are lures to draw enemies away from the crowd, thereby isolating more dangerous targets that would command your respect and attention in a full-on engagement. Like the Kuchisaki, the paper dolls, or the lamentation demons. Now, I want to take a second here to shout out Under the Mayo, whose videos on the Fun Zone and Challenge Matters, which are really great topics, have helped me find ways to keep combat gameplay in Ghostwire Tokyo and other games pretty fresh and engaging. Now, also with Ghostwire Tokyo being a Bethesda game, I can see the influence that a game like Doom Eternal may have had in developing the combat system and how the broad spectrum of enemies that you get in the game are geared towards that. Akito is provided with a variety of weapons and skills. The magic spells of wind, water, and fire offer different approaches to taking on single targets versus multiple targets, AoE attacks, alternate firing modes, and close-range finishers like the core grab and performing seals. Blocking is also a very useful mechanic to preserve your health and protect yourself, and it can also be timed to stun enemies to allow for some crucial counterattacks to take the pressure off of Akito. The bow can be very useful, taking out aerial targets a little bit more effectively than the wind spell, and just having a full-on stealth approach, getting your Dishonored on. The talismans offer a way for you to do crowd control and even become force multipliers for Akito by refilling his spell well, trapping enemies, so on, and making them overall weaker to his attacks, more susceptible to core grabs. Overall, the game provides you a lot of options to make Akito the ultimate Swiss Army knife for taking out these evil spirits.
お前には余裕があった。まるで歯が立たなかった。戦いにすらなっていなかった。
Okay, so let's segue into where I think the combat gameplay falls a little short. When I dove into combat being broad, but that there is depth to it, I don't think that's an inaccurate assessment. With that being said, I think there are several areas that show that the depth to the combat doesn't go that far. The enemy forces that you face, while certainly varied, lack cohesion in my opinion. Starting off in the game, in the early part of the game, they are certainly intimidating with their relentless approach and because of your lack of real attack options. And if you're in a tight space like the Shibuya train station or the graveyard cemeteries or some of the alleyways in the city, they can quickly overwhelm you. Once the skill tree opens up, you rapidly ascend the power curve. Now again, I didn't play this on a higher difficulty. There is a hard mode which one can assume will certainly present more challenges in the game, and then there's Tatari mode where XP leveling is eliminated altogether and you're just left with the spells and the tools that you acquire. However, in my opinion, the combat loop is again going to get a little stale, and that's primarily from my perspective based on how enemies behave. For example, the fodder enemies like students and the salarymen, or the slendermen, however you want to call them, that are prevalent or have a fairly linear pathway that's really predictable and easy to manipulate them into a choke point, as long as you're aware of your surroundings. Enemies like the Retribution Spirits and Sanguine Dancer from the Spider Thread DLC do make their appearances in the main game, and they certainly add a nice wrinkle, but you don't encounter them often enough, or if at all, with the rest of the enemies of the main game. They're usually on their own, and I think that's a missed opportunity to have a mix-up with how you approach enemy clusters. I've watched some playthroughs on higher difficulty, and I don't think I'd be wrong to assume the pressure doesn't change, just the amount of damage that they'll put out with their attacks. You can certainly have a more curated combat experience with the Spider's Thread DLC, which I've played, but that falls outside of the main game, and to me, it falls outside of the topic of this discussion altogether. Now, there's also been some discussion about whether Ghostwire Tokyo is a horror game. I would say it depends. To me, it's a little bit of everything. It's action, it's mystery, thriller, a little bit of scares, but not too much. I mean, the whole game deals in otherworldly spirits, souls, questions of life or death, and hauntings, what happens after we die. But is it truly horror? I don't recall too many jump scare or boom moments, which is surprising considering who Tango Gameworks is. And if you don't know, they've made the Evil Within games. And for the uninitiated, here's a small glimpse into that hellscape.
Okay. We did it?
Oh, shit! From back then.
So yeah, they know what they're doing. And that's not to say that, this game isn't without its spookier, more eerie, creepy elements. There's certainly the atmospherics of the game. And certainly when you get to the high school mission, that's when Tango Gameworks really shows their heritage. And here's a small sample of that, just to show you what I'm talking about.
この汚れを浄化しないと進めねえな。
よし、これで進めるぞ。追ってきてる？追ってきてるよね？
元を探すべきか。どうやら教えてくれるみたいだな。あの影に従おう。
なんで僕のことが書いてあるんだ。
So, this has been a pretty long video, and I appreciate you sticking with me to the end. This write-up and recording had several iterations before this final edition. It took me a little while to complete this project. A large part of that has been because I didn't want this to be a cookie-cutter type review. Good, bad, buy, don't buy, all that stuff. Ultimately, it's your choice. It's your money, your time, how you want to spend it. This is again my experience with it. Your mileage will vary. I initially thought that I didn't like the game as much as I did when I finished it. And that was maybe about a month ago. But after some time away and looking back through some of the footage I'd captured, I realized I had a great experience with Ghostwire Tokyo. It may have its shortcomings here and there, but ultimately it is a good game, and one that I think anyone would enjoy spending hours playing. In summary, Ghostwire Tokyo is a whole heap of fun. I'd recommend starting on hard difficulty even if you're new to it, unless you're purely looking for a chill time, which I was, because I don't take gaming as seriously as I used to, or so I'd like to tell myself. There's a lot to this game that you can find enjoyment from. Thank you all for joining me through this adventure. If you like this video and want to see more like it, leave me a like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Ghostwire Tokyo. What did you like or dislike about it? What stood out to you? Did you even play it? If you didn't play it, why not? What's stopping you? Thanks for joining me again. Appreciate every one of you. Have a wonderful day.